Good afternoon. This is the press center of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, and here is the information of the English spokesman of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine on the situation in the operations area of the joint forces engaged in defeating the Russian armed aggression in the east of Ukraine. Now, the situation on the front line remained largely unchanged in the period from June 4th until June 11th, 2018. Russian occupation forces continued to shell our positions as well as civilian infrastructure in defiance of the norms of international humanitarian law by using the weapons prohibited under the Minsk agreements. Starting from midnight on Monday, June 4th until the morning of June 11th, the occupational forces fired a total of 3 artillery shells of 152 mm and over 80 artillery shells of 122 mm against the defense positions of the joint forces along the front line. The enemy forces also launched over 140 mines using the mortars with the caliber of 120 mm and over 235 mines using the mortars with the caliber of 82 mm. All of them were fired against the defense positions of Ukrainian forces. It should be mentioned, this is almost twice as much as was fired during the previous week. The fighters were using tanks, IFVs, heavy machine guns, grenade launchers, coupled with the enemy sniper rifle. Unfortunately, 2 of Ukrainian soldiers were killed in action and 14 Ukrainian soldiers were wounded as the result of direct actions within the operations area of the joint forces. Our hearts and minds stay with the family and friends of the fallen Ukrainian heroes. Speaking on the casualties among the enemy forces, according to preliminary data of the Ukrainian intelligence, a total of 17 fighters were neutralized by the joint forces, with additional 39 fighters of the Russian occupation forces were wounded as the result of an accurate response fire taken by the Ukrainian defenders. The service personnel of the armed forces of Ukraine and other uniformed services under the joint forces provide active assistance to civilian population along the demarcation line and hold their defense positions against the Russian armed aggression. Now let's talk about the international information. The Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Stepan Poltorek, met with his counterparts from the US, UK, Canada, Lithuania, and Poland at the NATO headquarters. In the course of the meeting, the parties agreed on the plans for further cooperation. The Minister of Defense of Ukraine informed the partners on the progress of reforms in the Defense Ministry as well as in the armed forces of Ukraine, and talked on the near-term prospect of adopting the law of Ukraine on the national security and defense of Ukraine by the Verkhovna Rada. The high parties also discussed the need to restore the regular meetings of the NATO-Ukraine Commission at all levels. The participants emphasized the importance of cooperation in this format as it presents an effective tool for defining strategic directions and assessing the practical results of joint activities. The Minister of Defense of Ukraine, General of Army of Ukraine, Stepan Poltorek, also met with the NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. In the course of the meeting, the Minister of Defense of Ukraine has informed the NATO Secretary General on peculiarities of the military-political situation in Ukraine, as well as on the progress of defense reforms currently taking place in the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. Stepan Poltorek also emphasized on the fruitful work of NATO advisors at the Ministry of Defense and expressed his gratitude for the comprehensive assistance package provided by the NATO member nations. Besides, the parties considered a range of issues related to a gradual improvement of cooperation, possible involvement of NATO representatives in the strategic defense review in Ukraine, and identified the necessary steps to restore the nuke sessions at all levels. In the course of the visit to Brussels, the Minister of Defense of Ukraine also participated in the North Atlantic Council Ministerial on NATO Resolute Support Mission in Afghanistan. In the course of his intervention, Stepan Poltrak emphasized that the armed forces of Ukraine had been engaged in operations on the territory of the Republic of Afghanistan for over 11 years and would continue to participate in the mission. General of Army of Ukraine Stepan Poltrak also informed about the readiness of the Ukrainian side to deploy additional personnel to the mission headquarters if so required. The head of the National Defense Ministry also had a series of multilateral and bilateral meetings with the defense ministries from the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Lithuania, Poland, and Hungary. As part of his working visit to the Kingdom of Belgium, the Minister of Defense of Ukraine also visited 3 servicemen of the Armed Forces of Ukraine that undergo rehabilitation at the Quid Astrid Military Hospital. Now let's go back to Ukraine. The delegation of the U.S. Armed Forces visited Zhytomyr Regional Military Commissariat and arrived amidst the transformation of military commissariats into the territorial manning centers. One of the most important tasks of the newly created centers will be the recruitment of citizens for contract-based military service, which entails an active search and thorough selection of candidates. The parties expressed their interest in continuing an active cooperation on the issues of selecting the citizens for military service. Another group made of 10 servicemen wounded as a result of combat operations in eastern Ukraine was sent to Bulgaria for medical rehabilitation in the frames of the NATO Trust Fund arrangements. It should be noted that Bulgaria is the leading country of NATO Trust Fund on medical rehabilitation, committed to provide rehabilitation for around 300 wounded Ukrainian servicemen over a period of 2 years. Now, this is all the information I have right now. Thank you for your attention.